Welcome, Kyle Konkiel, to Home is Where the Dark is, episode 62. Man, thank you so much for coming by. It's been many years since we've seen each other.
Yeah, man, it's been at least 10.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I met you was one of the first times I responded to a need a bass player ad on Craigslist when you were still doing Reciprocal.
Fucking good old days of Craigslist and technical death metal. Holy shit. Yeah, Reciprocal. Okay, so I'm trying to like go back in my brain and like my time machine device to those days, but it's so blurry. But yeah, so you remember the Reciprocal technical death metal project.
That was like 2005.
Yeah.
And then when I got back from the Mayhem Fest tour in 2010, I think it was you, me, Chase, and Ariel.
Yeah.
We're doing Dim 7, but like we had like a couple of jams and then that was like really it. I don't know what happened with that. But.
Yeah. That project went through many chapters, but it's been laid to rest for a few different reasons. But yeah, I think that was the last time we saw each other was that photo shoot.
Yeah. Because we had jammed at that place on Vos. I can't even remember what that place is called anymore. But that super small rehearsal room, you, me, Ariel, and Chase. And then Chase went on to do like Butcher Babies.
Yeah.
And Ariel's OTEP. And Ariel's still an amazing musician.
Oh yeah. Have you kept in touch with Ariel?
We talk a little bit.
Oh really? Cool.
Yeah, like not super like, we don't talk all the time, but when I have questions, like theory questions, I'll ask him, especially when it comes to keyboard stuff, because that's still a very new realm for me. And that guy knows everything. So I'll ask him, like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's actually put me onto a lot of cool like production tools and stuff online that are completely 100% free that like really help. Like, oh, hey, you want to do this song in C major or C minor. Here's all of the scales that work in that. Here are all the notes and how you can play them and different ways to because like keyboard, I don't know anything about music theory. Like I've taken music lessons, but I don't know jack about like theory. So I know it's like some modes and stuff, but when I'm writing music, especially when I'm writing, keyboard stuff, I feel like I need to be a little bit more knowledgeable in that realm because, I'm like, I'm the guy with the chord stickers on his keyboard. So I know where I'm at. And
as you know, when you're trying to learn keys, I think for me, I learn more by ear, but it's important to, if you can pick up on theory, because I don't think it always resonates with everybody. Some people just can't grasp it, and some people will grasp it right away. So if you're able to grasp it and you can incorporate it into your songwriting in a creative way, then I think it's great. But some people I feel like they go to write, but then they're thinking about, okay, well, what should I do theory wise to make this better? And then they kind of like throw themselves off because they're thinking too technical about it instead of just whatever comes out creatively. So yeah, it's great though.
I mean, I think theory is a great tool to utilize when you're writing music, but I don't think it should be the basis of how you write music. You know what I mean? Because I'll sit there and I'll write something, most of my stuff because of, the tunings my guitars are in, and because like, C is a very, it's like the dominant, key on the piano. I tend to write all my stuff in C, D, or B. So I don't even try to think about it. I just, in different parts, or playing on one of my guitars, and whatever sounds cool. And then as I try to, because you could always, I'm really bad with intro riffitis. I write the sickest intro riffs and then everything else just falls apart behind it. So I try to make it, I don't think about theory in the way of like, oh, I have this intro riff. Where in the scales is the next part going to sound good? I just try to be like, all right, the dominant note for this intro riff is D. What else can I do with D in it?
Sure.
Not like, but it is a nifty tool to have, especially if you're, writing layers and leads and stuff like that. Like I enjoy utilizing it for that, but I'm not sitting there and be like, all right, this is in C major 9,
right.
flat second,
right.
I don't do that.
Yeah, I can get super nerdy with it, but like for me, I feel like when I'm writing a track, I think about theory like zero, and I just maybe after I'm done writing it, I'll analyze it and see like what I did. But yeah, it's just kind of, especially when you're doing extreme metal or like any kind of heavier genre, there are no rules. So it's like whatever comes out is what it is. And if it's all over the place theory wise, who cares if it's a good song, you know?
Do you know what I think is super funny about heavy metal and like extreme metal in general is like you brought up a good point how there's literally no rules in songwriting, but there are rules to being metal.
To being metal?
Yeah, being metal.
For sure. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like there's a dress code, there's certain bands that you gotta like be like, oh, you don't listen to this band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just think it's funny, like, and the music itself is just a freedom of expression and, you know, writing. You know, for me, it was a lot of teenage angst, you know? And, but I just, I remember being super young metal elitist and like, if it has clean singing and doesn't have blast beats, I don't want anything to do with it. And then 2002 came around and, you know, Killswitch Engage kind of changed the game for everybody. So.
Absolutely. And I think we go through phases and chapters in our musical tastes as we age. And sometimes some people don't change at all. Some people like completely go on the other end of what they originally liked. So
the spectrum for me of music has it's so funny. I feel like I've turned into like my parents almost, because I went from, you know, early teens, Cannibal Corpse, Cradle of Filth, Deicide. And don't get me wrong, I still listen to that stuff more so in nostalgia than in anything else. Like, you know, I'm sure the new Cannibal Corpse record is great. I'm probably not going to buy it.
It's killer. Yeah.
But I've like moved on from like extreme metal to like, then I went to like metalcore, and then I went to like, I got into industrial like in my early 20s, and it was almost weird because for me, industrial didn't really have a space in any of the like groups I was hanging out, because like, you know, even when I was touring with like In This Moment or, you know, whatever, like, you know, I'd be like, oh, you guys want to listen to some Prong? You know, or like, you guys want to listen to Ministry?
Well, were they turned off by that?
No, totally. I mean, some people weren't. And I'm not saying that like, you know, I ever got really judged from a musical taste, but it's just like, it's not something I ever like, you know, people were like, oh man, I really want to listen to Pre-Hate Machine right now. Like, what?
Huh.
Like what? Like, you don't think fucking Closer's a good record? Jesus Christ.
Well, I think, yeah, like, you know, when we're in bands as we're younger, like, unless you're the exception, I think, you know, a lot of us, we're stuck in our genre, and it's harder to like be more broad in musical taste. It just seems like that's how I was. But so that makes sense. Like when you're in a band with younger people, But yeah, I feel like too, like as we start to work with older musicians that have had more experience and more seasoned, it's like, you know, you might be in a technical death metal band, but you're listening to Nine Inch Nails on the tour bus, you're listening to Ministry or whatever. Like you said, all these different musical genres and tastes like are more. I feel like we become more. We can connect as we age, and we appreciate all genres or most genres as we get older. At least from my experience. So.
But then I've gone from like, you know, industrial to, you know, like I'm also terrible at listening to new music. Like it's pulling teeth. Like someone's like, bro, so and so's got a new record.
Yeah.
Like the only band I was ever like not like that with was Sleep Token like 5 years ago.
Okay, so you're
like someone was like, bro, you got to check this out. But then they put it on right in my face. And I was like, oh, this is dope.
That's what it takes, though. It's kind of sad because, like, to listen to something new, it literally sometimes it takes someone forcing you to listen to it. Like, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm gonna, you know, check out all their stuff. But yeah, it's really, the band really has to be like grab your attention to, like, for at least for me to listen to, or like a friend refers them, or you see the music video. It has like it really has to stand out in order to like gain the interest. That's why it's so hard. It seems so fucking hard these days to break through the noise, you say, like, as they say, is like, it's just, there's so much saturation of bands and music.
I mean, everybody has a band, dude. Everybody.
Yeah.
My fucking mom's got a band.
Everybody does. Dude. It's true. And everyone has a podcast too.
Yeah. I mean, so. I had a podcast. I had 2 different podcasts for a while, but I have this thing where I'm so like scatterbrained. Like I think it's why it's taken me 2 years to write 2 records. And I'm only halfway done with both records. But granted, I have weird, like I sit down and I put the guitar on or I put the keyboard on and I give myself an hour. And if nothing comes out of that session, I'm not going to sit there and like beat myself up over it because I want music to be fun.
Yeah.
I want to sit there like the song I sent you. I think it's just right now. It's just called "Fuck Guitars" MP3, but that came out so natural. And it just the main riff of that song came out super natural, and it was like I was like, oh, you can go here. Oh, I can do this. And it was a very like fun and exciting, exhilarating experience for me. Now, granted, not all songs are going to be like that, but I'm not going to sit there and like try to force something out and then just like, you know, because there's already enough mediocrity out there. I'm not saying, you know, I ride the best shit there is, but in my opinion, you know, I'm not going to put out like if it's mediocre for me, it's real bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I hear you. I think too, when we sit down to write music, you know, if it's not working that day, like then don't force it. Maybe like take a break, go on a walk, you know, do something else, and then maybe come back to it. But yeah, it's so common. There's so many days where I go to write music and it's just not happening, and there's days when you know you get something down in 30 minutes and you get like a whole idea down and you're stoked on it. So yeah, it's just that's normal. But so you've been sitting on tracks for 2 years and you're just kind of taking your time with your solo stuff.
Yeah, so I have a death metal record out. In the past couple of records, I've been doing more and more backup vocals for Bad Wolves, and because I've been screaming into a mic for 5 years, I learned a lot of really like sick techniques that work really well, so I can like literally just do it all day. And I was like joking around with my old guitar player Chris, and it was like an inside joke about having this like doom or the deathcore band called Slander, and this is a long story, but yeah, and so we would just like fuck around during sound check, and I would sing and play bass, and he would play guitar, and when the pandemic hit, I would really kind of wanted to start getting into production and recording. And I felt like I was so far behind all of my peers, because like everyone at least knew how to jot like some sort of idea down.
Yeah.
And I didn't. So I kind of took like this massive crash course with my buddy Max Karen, who writes a lot of the music with John for Bad Wolves. And, he kind of built me a few templates and kind of paved the way for me to just be able to jot down ideas and, a couple of mixing templates, so on and so forth. And then was just like, don't use these as a crutch. These are just to get you started.
Yeah.
And as I've moved on from there, I've created my own techniques and, EQ tricks and mastering tricks and stuff like that. And I don't think I'm anything special, but I have the confidence of being able to show somebody a polished demo instead of like it sounding like, a black metal record from 1990.
What you sent me, what you showed me sounded really good. So yeah.
Thanks, man. I spent a lot of time on that.
No, for sure. It sounded huge. It sounded really good. And I really like your songwriting and the riffs you're coming up with and the arrangements. Very, very cool. So looking forward to the final product whenever that will be. But
yeah, like I said before we got on camera here, I'm doing a synthwave band, which is kind of like a mixture between dark wave and synth pop. All the songs are going to kind of follow very somewhat strict pop structure. We all know what that is. But I'm mixing a lot of like industrial. Basically, it's like Carpenter Brute meets The Midnight. I haven't shown any of my like super, pussy love song stuff yet. But
ooh, interesting.
But yeah, it's gonna be dark wave, synth pop, a little bit of yacht rock.
Hell yeah, man. So Bad Wolves, Die About It is out today. So tell us about the record. Tell us about the process. How are you feeling about it? Let's get into that. Let us know.
So Die About It is our fourth record. It's our second record with our new singer, Daniel D.L. Laskowitz. Most people know him from the Acacia Strain. Riff master himself. Best pinch harmonic probably in the world besides Zakk Wylde. So Die About It, it's an interesting one because we've gone through so much turmoil over the past couple years, and I really think that we were able to use a lot of everything that we've been going through and put it into our music. It's my favorite record today, and I know it's so cliche of people like, this new record is really my favorite record. And this one really is. And this is the record that I've had the least amount to do with. So I think that shows that it's not just me being biased because like, oh, I wrote a lot on this record. I didn't write shit.
Did you record on it?
No.
Okay.
That's not how it worked out this time around because John and Max, John Berkland, drummer, owner, songwriter, Bad Wolves was in Devil Driver, so on and so forth. Him and Max have this very efficient writing, like the way that they write. And Max is one of those players who he just sounds good on everything. And when he and John get into a room together, you know, they put on a lot of, I don't know, they just have a way that they work, and it's less efficient for me to be like, all right, I'll come in and play bass on it. Max is more than an efficient bass player. I don't typically play the exact same things that he does live, but I really think that his guitar and bass tone combined is exactly what the Bad Wolves sound is. I've been able to translate that over to my live tones and the instruments that I use live. But it's really not even like a thing for me, you know, because the way the record came out, and then all the stuff that DL did, he's in Massachusetts, you know, he plays guitar, he plays bass, like he just played on all his stuff.
Does it bother you that you're not on the record?
I mean, we've had discussions about it, but at the end of the day, is there anything that I could have added that would have made the record do better as a bass player?
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, why spend the extra money? I mean, everything's so expensive these days.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of have to separate, you know, your ego from being a player. And is there anything that I would have done that would make this record sell 10,000 more units? Probably not.
Okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
You know, because I definitely did demo a number of songs. I tried a bunch of different stuff, and, you know, they didn't happen to hit for this record. Doesn't mean it won't hit at all, you know, eventually. But at the end of the day, it's what could I have done for the record? And I think this record definitely speaks for itself. There's a lot more attitude on this record than the last one. I think we were in such a rush on the last record because we had to rewrite and re-record vocals.
Yeah.
This one is just more pissed. And I think because we had to spend a lot less time with the material, we were able to kind of pick the best of everything that everybody had to offer. You know, we released 3 songs so far prior to the album release. Bad Friend, which in itself, the main riff it's just an open chugging riff, but you add a 2-octave whammy in it and it makes it cool, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And then there's Legends Never Die, which is, you know, more of a radio rock song. And then we did like a wild card with Die About It. It was like our weird song, and it's streaming better than like the last 3 or 4 songs we released. I think it's because it's so different. I think there's a lot of things, especially in rock radio, that you hear on Sirius, you hear on terrestrial radio, you know, not to discredit any of the bands that are on there, but there's a whole lot of that sounds like this. You know, I really think that there are a few bands out there that kind of set the tone for the next 5 years. And we're still kind of in the transitioning period of one sound to the next sound. You know, because, you know, everything kind of sounded like Kevin Churko and Kane Churko for 10 years, you know, and then we're kind of transitioning into this genre bending alternative radio rock where it's like, you know, every verse now has a trap beat on it, you know, or some form of, you know, mumble rap or whatever. So I just think we kind of infused a lot of the stuff that actually influences us as a band, and it's gone onto this record because like we all do love different kinds of music. You know, John and I love 80s pop. Like, that's one thing that he and I bonded over on the first few Bad Wolves tours when we were in the van, is just listening to 80s pop, you know, Depeche Mode, Huey Lewis and the News.
Do you like Tears for Fears?
Dude, I have this Songs from the Big Chair long sleeve, and it's like my favorite shirt ever. I actually don't know where it is right now. now that I thought about it, I'm like, man, I haven't seen that shirt in a while. But yeah, Tears for Fears is one of my favorite bands.
Nice.
But yeah, so we any top 40s from like 1982 to like 89 is like love it.
What do you think it is about that era and that style, specifically that for like that you latch onto? Because I know what it is for me, but I'm curious what it is for you.
So, coming out of the 70s, everything was just a lot of distortion, a lot of riffs. The 70s were a pretty riffy era. You got bands like Black Sabbath, Boston, whatever, Led Zeppelin. And there was this thing like post Beatles that was happening in England or in the UK, and synthesizers, and I really think the synthesizers coming out, and like, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the way the synthesizers sound or if it's, I don't know. It's just the way it's like super like fucking strategic pop production. Yeah. And it's so pleasant.
Yeah. Pleasant indeed. For me, it's like when I listen to a Tears for Fears or a Depeche Mode, or like slightly different, but for me, it feels similar, like The Cure, something like that, where they have like these, to me, they're like melancholic, celestial synths and pads.
It's a lot of minor key songs with really dope sounds that like make you feel good about feeling bad.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I love all that stuff, man. So it's cool that that's part of your musical influences as well.
Yeah. Post punk, or like everything, rap, industrial. Like me and John get along, I think, the most when it comes to music styles, because we're the wild cards. Like, I'll be, he'll be the first one to put on like fucking, Halloween by Ministry or something, or whatever. But, we really we like a lot of weird stuff that not a lot of people like he digs deep. And he has so much musical knowledge. This guy knows everything you could possibly ever want to know about Metallica. Don't know why, but he knows everything about it.
I think we all have our bands that we really dig deep on and nerd out on, for sure.
Yeah. We put together all of these things that we enjoy, hip hop, current pop, older pop. And we just kind of like took the best elements of our last few records, figured out what worked for us and what hasn't worked for us, but also tried a lot of new things as well. So it's not just like, oh, it's, your favorite parts of this record and this record. It's like, no, like people really liked our first record because it was, not just before Zombie, but there was a lot of heavy prog influence and writing on that record. All of our not radio songs on that record are very strange, like in a good way. They have a very distinct sound, and, I attribute that to John and Max. And then we kind of, gave it up a little bit on the second record we wanted to keep some heavy vibes, but I thought we had steered a little too far from how the other non-radio songs were, on the first album, on these last two albums. But there's definitely a lot more of the strange zaniness brought back onto Die About It.
That was my next question. I was going to be with the new record. Like, what things did you, what do you feel like is what makes it stand out, and like how did or the boundaries pushed, do you feel, for this new record?
I think that because of how many new things, I wouldn't say how many new things we tried, but there's a few things that we've stepped out of our comfort zone in when it comes to, like I said, I didn't write shit on this record. But I know that John and DL both stepped out of their comfort zone and tried a lot of new stuff. DL wrote a lot on this record, and he went to a bunch of different singing teachers, because he's always kind of sang in choir style, kind of like R&B, stuff like that. But he went all out, and like the screams and the way that he does rapping and stuff on this record are Like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you guys don't need me to come in and do any screams for this one. But yeah, I just think stepping out of the comfort zone and just trying new stuff and not dwelling on it, because then you get demo-itis.
Right.
And you're like, oh, you know.
Yeah, I feel like for me, there's a fine line between, okay, you want to spend enough time on it, but when you spend too much time on it, that's when you start going backwards.
I think that's what happened on Dear Monsters, our third record. Not that I don't think it's a great record, you know. I think it's a great record, but I think we sat with those songs for so long, and then when we went in to re-record vocals, we ended up changing things that, you know, I know Doc was very vocal about not wanting to change. And, you know, I agreed with, you know, things to an extent, but, you know, I think we just got demo-itis.
Yeah.
And we had the time, we had the budget. So, you know, things changed. And
yeah, just because you have more time doesn't necessarily mean you need to use that time. If you're happy with how something has turned out, like, you don't have to continue to tweak it. But I feel like there's like a sweet spot, at least for me and with my experience so far in producing music and making music. It's like, I feel like the best stuff I've done, or the best stuff I've worked on with other artists, are the songs where you go in, you write the track, you have the idea, you spit it out how it is, how it comes out organically and naturally, and you don't question it that much. You record it, and that's it. Don't overthink it. Just let it be what it is, and it'll do what it's going to perform, how it's going to perform for the listeners. So that's like my favorite way to write. I hate dwelling on things and overthinking and going back and revising. I just like to fucking write it how I'm feeling at the time, and then let it be what it is. So that's just me though.
And just the way that like certain songs came about is kind of how we were like, all right, this is how it's going to be. Like Die About It was like a kind of like an ode to nu metal, you know, like with the main riff, you know, super simple, like pentatonic riff, you know, nothing crazy about it, but it turned into this, you know, completely like bonkers, super heavy rap, but like big chorus. But yeah, there's a lot of things I'm really super proud of on this album that if we've done them before, I think we've figured out the formula for us, and then all the new stuff that we've been able to accomplish on this record as well.
Fuck yeah, man. So you guys are going on tour very soon, starting on November 9th in Knoxville, and then you're going to be out for a while, it looks like.
Yeah, we just announced some new dates earlier this week. We're going out with Bush, and then we're filling in with some headline dates. So we just announced some headline dates coming back from Vancouver with Bush. It's like Seattle, Portland, Northern California. I don't remember exactly. It's so hard for me to keep everything in this noggin, because right now I'm our musical director now too.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so I program all of the MIDI.
The lighting?
No.
Okay.
Axe Effects, Quad Cortex.
Okay, gotcha.
MIDI switching. Gotcha. I do all of our backing tracks, which, hey, just because you have backing tracks doesn't mean your band sucks or they can't play. All of our backing tracks are clicks and production.
Yeah, I love that stuff. I love, like, you know, if you have, you know, bands that have like orchestras and huge synths, and maybe they don't have a keyboard player, and obviously they don't have an orchestra backing them. So it's cool to hear that in the track. And to me, like that's, I love hearing that in a live show. And to me, it's in no way is it cheating. It's just like you're bringing the show to the audience. You know?
I just think there's this whole like boomer mentality when it comes to computers on stage. Like, people don't realize it. Like, there are so many things you can do to elevate your live performance, and just because it's coming from a computer doesn't mean that it's cheating.
Right.
You know, like Waves has this great front of house rack that you can have a studio quality vocal chain with compression where all your vocals sound level and consistent.
Yep.
Isn't that what everybody wants?
Right.
You know, because how many times have you gone to a show and somebody's like, I can't hear you, you know? Like, do you want all your levels to be, you know, consistent with every show? So it's like having the tracks and, you know, the click track in our slates and funny shit that I put in it that no one else can hear but me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have fun with that. and I have fun with our interludes and transitions into songs. And like Doc and I really dug deep for this because we're going to be playing 15 songs for the headline set.
Nice. How long is that running?
That's hour 40.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So we're doing 45 minutes with Bush. We can squeeze in about 8 or 9 songs with that.
Hell yeah, man. That's an awesome gig, dude.
Yeah,
Congrats.
we were super stoked to get that. You know, we haven't done direct support for a band that size yet, and I really think we need to get onto more tours that, you know, I keep saying this term, but that are out of our comfort level, you know, because we're used to being, you know, 1 of 4 or 2 of 4 on arena tours, you know, and arena tours are, for the most part, are pretty fucking simple. You know, you have access to a venue early in the morning. For the most part, you have a shower every day, catering. You know, you get fucking spoiled out there.
It's more comfortable than a van.
Yeah. And there's just a lot more amenities.
Yeah.
You know? But, you know, when we just went out on a little short headline run that were our shows, and it was weird having people there for us because we're not used to that. Like, we hadn't done a headline run really since Zombie came out in 2018. We had been just support for, you know, Five Finger Death Punch, Breaking Benjamin, 3 Days Grace, like all these bands for years. And so to kind of go out and do something on our own, it was weird because we're used to having to warm the crowd up or win the crowd over. Like, we just did Europe. We did 2.5 months in Europe with Volbeat, and their crowd is very much there for them. So being 1 of 3 on that tour, some of those shows were rough, and not because they were like booing us or anything, but because it was just, we weren't giving back what we were.
Harder audience to please.
Yeah. But going out and having the crowd just be like there for us, I was like, oh man, I totally forgot. Like, these shows are the easy shows. Like, granted, we might not have all of the amenities of the arena tours or the amphitheater tours, but these are the ones that don't feel like work. You know, these are the ones where the people are there for us. You know, and I usually do this thing when we're on arena tours where, you know, I like to go watch the other bands. You know, like like I said, we were just out last year with Skindred and Volbeat, and I like Skindred. So anytime, you know, I was done, I would go, you know, brush the knots out of my hair and go out into the crowd and go get a drink and watch. I forget when you're doing your own headline shows that it's not that easy, because I'll go out and then I was like, oh yeah, I forgot they're here for us. People do recognize me.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I could go out and do a Volbeat crowd, and for the most part, no one's going to recognize me. Or a Five Finger Death Punch crowd. Like, no one's going to fucking know who I am. Perfect. You know, my shield of anonymity. But at our own shows, it doesn't really work that well.
Speaking of your own shows, what were some of the, like, give me some stories from like some of the most insane, like, standout gigs you've done.
Oh man, the first thing that comes to mind is a super negative experience. I don't remember where we were. I don't remember the city, but I know we were in the South. And that's why, and I don't want to single out any city, but we were in the South, and we had a neo-Nazi at the show. Oh shit! And Doc is mixed, and our former singer is mixed as well, and he kept using the N-word. Uh-oh. Yeah, and that was not a very fun night.
Like shouting it from the crowd. Yikes!
I'm like, bro, like, there's kids here, man. Like, they're here to see the Zombie guys, you know? Like, yeah, they got to deal with our heavy metal set, but, like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
yikes. What happened? You just
No, security kicked them out, mainly because it was starting to get heated between our singer and the person in the crowd, which understandably.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kicked him out, and then we had a great show.
What else? Any other crazy gig moments that you recall?
Oh, I'm trying to think. man, it's just so weird. Like I'm the worst on the spot. I remember it was Zoltan's birthday, and they have the song "Burn Motherfucker," and we all dressed up like Zoltan from Five Finger Death Punch. Went on stage, mind you. There's fucking live pyro.
Nice.
During the song. So we had a very tiny window to squeeze in on stage before pyro like shot up. But yeah, and we were just like running around the stage and nobody got set on fire. But that would have been super cool if they did. It would have been a funnier story than that. But nothing really, besides we're pretty lucky.
So all your most of your touring and your show gig experiences, everything has gone pretty smooth for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, besides the normal gear malfunction happens to everybody.
Yeah,
especially in the heat.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, we've been very fortunate to have nothing too crazy, unless I'm completely missing something, and then I'll call you later and be like, "Yo, dude, I totally forgot about this." But yeah, our shows are usually, I've never really had a bad show with Bad Wolves. I've had that kind of sucked, but at the end of the day, I get a paycheck for doing something I wanted to do for a really long time. So is it really bad at the end of the day? Am I going to remember this moment where my fucking quad cortex malfunctioned?
Oh, that happened?
Yeah. Oh. Am I gonna remember? Am I gonna remember this moment where I had way too much RF in my ears?
I've always wondered that because I know so many people use those quads now, and
it's a slight malfunction.
Well, I've always wondered, what do you do? I mean, unless the only thing you have to have a backup one or a backup rig, because if the computer goes down, it's what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, we got A and B rigs.
Yeah,
and basically my quad cortexes feed off of each other. Because I have two. So, and then, with the boys, they're on the fractals.
Oh, cool. So, you said you're programming all the MIDI for the sets. So you're linking up your quad, the fractals, and you're doing the backing track. So everything's coming from your laptop.
Mm-hmm. Two laptops that I use, iConnectivity XL for the MIDI switching. Because basically what I do for the quad cortex is I have both my quad cortexes run simultaneously, and they do all the same switches. I'd like that they're basically sending the exact same MIDI. The computer's sending the exact same MIDI to the two quad cortexes. And I have one coming out of the left input and one coming out of the right input of one. So if one goes down, you just fucking radial switch.
Nice. Okay.
So I don't have to,
That's smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And same with the fractals, We only have one backup right now for the fractal, but I'm hoping we can get at least one more.
So have you thought about or experimented with, since you're already doing all the MIDI for the gear, for the bass and guitar gear and the tracks, have you thought about incorporating a lighting, a DMX lighting for gigs in the future?
Yeah, we have. That's one thing I haven't really gotten into. And then I know if I do that, I'm going to have to do it all the time. And I mean, for the most part, now that I redid our entire playback setup. I did it with my buddy Nick Annis. He plays guitar for Kesha, music director, great dude. He really, really, really helped me. We basically went in and tempo mapped all the songs and gridded them to that tempo. So, for the most part, I can drag and drop wherever.
Nice.
But yeah, that would be super cool. It's just more stuff.
It's a lot, but holy shit, it's so killer. You've seen, I think one of my favorite lighting shows for a band where everything is just so synced perfectly and meticulous is when you see Meshuggah live.
Oh yeah.
It's just fucking epic, dude.
So sick.
So awesome.
Nothing on stage except for fucking 4 dudes in a drum kit.
Yeah.
And then just the sickest lighting show ever.
It's so locked in, man, and I love that stuff. But yeah, it's just hundreds of thousands of dollars of rigging and lighting, and it's insane.
And it's you could spend all that money, learn how to do it in your off time, make more money, or you can spend $15,000 for a tour and you have somebody that does it for you.
True. Yeah.
Because either way, you're spending the money, It's just like renting fucking drum risers or ego boxes or whatever.
Yeah. So we have a themed question for the podcast. So if you need to take a little time to think about it, feel free. Or if you'd prefer not to answer it, feel free to let me know. The question is, what was one of the darkest times in your career, and what did you do to overcome it?
Oh man, yeah, I had a couple super dark moments in my careers. The end of 2010 was a super dark time for me. I got kicked out in this moment. A girl I was dating at that time broke up with me. I was 22 years old then. My 16-year-old chihuahua died in front of me, had a heart attack. And yeah, I just started boozing a lot. I think I was like a half a 30 rack a day with a half bottle Crown Royal. And one day I was just like, you know what? I can't really do this anymore. And I was like, I'm just not going to drink for a year. And everybody, all your drinking buddies are just like, yeah, sure, whatever. And I didn't drink for a year, and I was able to kind of like reel it in. And like now I do drink, but I can't party like I used to. Like I like to have a drink, every now and again on tour. Every now and again I'll get in a little bit too much, have a little bit too much fun, but
yeah.
But and there was times where, I was homeless and
Really?
then like leaving toxic relationships and, living in my car, and there's all this perception and that people have about you just because, they see you on the stage or they see you, however many views on YouTube or plays on Spotify or whatever. But it's just like we are, it takes a special kind of person to do what we do. And I think all of us are a little bit fucked.
Oh, yeah.
We're all on some form of autism spectrum. And, but yeah, there's been plenty of dark times, and luckily I've had, numerous friends, and, one in particular, my buddy Mike Kruger, he's a bass player from Nickelback. He let me live with him. This guy knew me for like a month and was like, we went out to lunch, and he was like, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, I'm living out of my car. He's like, no, you're not. You're coming to live with me. So, I'm forever indebted to him, and I've also had, plenty of people help me out since then. They'll take the shirt off their back to help out. So, I will say I'm very, very, very grateful for the people that I've surrounded myself with, because in your trying times, you see who your real friends are.
Correct.
So I've been fortunate enough to, I've had some shitty people in my life, but for the most part, I have really amazing people. Might not be a lot of people, but they're the type of people who are, do anything that they can to help you.
Yeah. You don't need a lot. You just need the right ones.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. Appreciate that. I've had dark times like that as well, where I've been in and out of toxic relationships, and not
boozing,
booze. I totally understand.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I felt like I was, I have one vice, besides, like I eat like a child. But like nicotine has always been, like, since I was little, like 11 years old, I started smoking. And, in really, really, really hard times, I'll pick up, a cigarette or two. And I always like, oh, what are you doing? That's like my one thing left over. Cause like, I don't like to drink by myself. If I'm drinking, like there needs to be other people around, or I'm just not going to do it.
That's a good thing, because there's a lot of people that they only drink by themselves, and then they spiral, and it's just...
Well, that's where I was getting to, is like I would go and party with my buddies, and me and one other friend would drink a 30-pack. 15 beers, like you should be done. And then I would just go home and drink a half bottle Crown Royal.
Yeah.
On top of that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot, but it's what you said earlier about like, as artists, I think we all have to be a little bit fucked up to want to pursue this kind of a career, because it's so brutal and grueling, and there's no guarantees.
Yeah.
In the music industry.
The only guarantee is that there is no guarantee. And for most of us, we don't do it for the clout or the fame. You know, most of us don't do it for the money because for the most part, unless you're in a pop act or really, really, really successful rock band, there is no money. Right. We do it because we enjoy playing music at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, you know, if we have antisocial tendencies or stage fright. You know, I feel like with me especially, there's a different person up there. Like, that's not me. You know, it's like you kind of have to form these like different personalities for like my onstage persona, because I have terrible stage fright. I have terrible social anxiety.
Well, so when you say you have stage fright, how do you cope with that? Like, do you have any rituals before you go on stage, or is it a situation of like you're nervous and then once you get up there, like there's you have a switch and like something switches on and you just overcome it? Or
yeah, so I mean, I've always how it's always manifested is I am always my most nervous 5 minutes before. And then as soon as I hear the intro, or like when I see the lights go down, and you know, if we're playing a big place, you know, there's a big, you know, that's a good way to get rid of it. But no, we do these things, and it's just to kind of like, it's like a bonding thing for us. We do this thing we call it the rip, where we all get into a huddle and I scream at everybody and say ridiculous things about, you know, the city we're in, whatever. And usually that makes everybody laugh. And it kind of, it's a really good icebreaker for the show, because it doesn't matter if you're upset when you're like hearing me talk about shitting my pants in Stuttgart, Germany, and yelling it at your face. You can't help but smile. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. I think there's a lot of musicians that struggle with stage fright, but they're very good at not showing that. And I think once you get up on stage, like I've experienced it too. Like I don't have it too bad, but there's been times where, you know, you get the butterflies, but then once you're up there and you have, it's time for your moment, then it kind of dissipates. So, yeah.
Yeah. No, I always try to figure out ways where I can make the show more fun. You know, I pick out one person, and it's usually they're like not right up front, because those people want the attention, the right up fronters. You can't give them that attention. I'll ignore those motherfuckers. As a couple rows back from the front, I find one person, doesn't matter, guy, girl, whatever. And I make it a point to like, it's their show.
Just fixate on them.
Yeah. And I use these triangle picks. You know, they look like pizza slices. They're real good for throwing. And I've gotten pretty good. Like, not like Cheap Trick homie good, but I can never remember that guy's name, and I'll remember it in 10 minutes. But gotten really good at aiming with the picks and how I can throw them. And that one person will always get one right in between the eyes.
That's accurate, damn.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, Kyle, thank you for coming by and sharing, sharing some dark moments with us, and letting us know about the new record. And if there's anything you'd like to plug before we go, feel free to let us know where we can check out the new record and all that.
Yeah, Die About It, out now. It's on Spotify, Tidal, Apple Music, anywhere that you stream music. You can check us all of our tour dates and purchase limited edition vinyls at badwolvesnation.com. You can follow us at Bad Wolves Official everywhere except for on TikTok. It's official Bad Wolves. I don't know why it got switched out. You can follow me at KS Konkiel on Instagram, Kyle Konkiel on Facebook. I probably won't add you though. You can also, I have a couple sponsors that I could plug.
Yeah, go ahead.
Plugyourholes.com. They do earrings. And it's a hilarious name.
Love it.
If you go to plugyourholes.com, enter Konky23. That's KONKY 23 at checkout. You get 20% off your first order.
Perfect.
Oh, and now CyrusShoes.com, Kyle K35. You get 35% off any order, anytime.
Excellent. Kyle, thank you so much. Everyone check out the new Bad Wolves record. Stream on all those services, and get a vinyl and a CD. And Kyle, thanks again. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Right on. See you guys. Thank you.